everyone. Welcome to the Trial Site News podcast. I'm Dr. Erin, your host, and our guest today is Bill Pepitone, who is running for mayor of New York City. Thank you so much, Bill, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. So for our listeners, we're going to talk a lot about Bill's opinions on the vaccine mandates, the vaccine passports, all of that, which everyone's really interested in right now. But first, Bill, do you mind taking a few minutes to tell our listeners a little bit about who you are?
Sure. My name is Bill Pepitone. I am the Conservative Party candidate for mayor of New York City. I am a retired New York City police officer, born and raised in Brooklyn. I have over 30 years experience in law enforcement, public safety, private security, operational management, and I have some political experience as well. I am a father of 3 daughters, and right now I am not only a candidate here in New York City, but I am a very, very concerned New York City resident about the future and the direction of our city.
Thanks so much. So let's just jump right into it since it's a hot news topic. I think the current mayor said today was the final day where city workers, cops, firefighters had to get their vaccine or they were going to be put on unpaid leave. I don't even know what the numbers are now, but what is your opinion on all of this?
Well, I actually just came from a rally on Staten Island by a sanitation headquarters, and there was a mixture of people. There were sanitation workers, obviously, firefighters, police officers, teachers, and just everyday New Yorkers, city workers. Everyone was there in support of our city workers who are losing their jobs as of today. They're being put on unpaid leave. Many of them are not going to come back. Many of them are put in their retirement papers. And it has put the city in such a terrible bind, public safety wise, public health wise. I am not anti-vaccine by any stretch. What I am is anti-mandate and pro-freedom of choice. This is still America, and we still have a right to choose what we put in our bodies. And that right is being taken away from us right here in New York City by an elected official. And the question is, if we allow our elected officials to start picking and choosing what rights they want to take away from us, where does this lead and what's next?
Yeah, it's scary times. So do you have any idea? I was just looking, I think the New York Post or someone just came out and they said 34 cops were put on unpaid leave today, but they failed. But later, that was what was going around on Twitter. But then I looked more closely and it said about 6,500 had exemptions put in.
Yes.
So they're still unvaccinated,
Yeah.
allowed to work. And now it seems like there's still battles going on in court, right?
Yes.
But the fire and things were happening with the firefighters. I think a little over 2,000 called in sick. So yeah, like I don't know if you can get into the specifics of the numbers, and some people will say, oh, it's not a big amount, but you worked as a cop, you know better than anyone, what it's like to work in New York City. I feel like those numbers do matter. What is your take on that?
Well, the numbers definitely matter. The problem is we don't know what the real numbers are. So the city obviously is going to slant the numbers in their favor and tell you that 91% of our city workers are vaccinated. And yes, that sounds great. But that 9% that's not vaccinated, that 9% that are not at work today and are not going to be at work tomorrow, that constitutes the closing of firehouses. We're going to have, or we already have, 24 firehouses that have closed down because of this, because of the manpower shortage. And while that may not seem like a lot, if your house is on fire, God forbid, and your family needs to be rescued, that extra 5, 6, 7 minute delay could be that's the deciding factor in whether your family lives or dies. I mean, that's the harsh reality of it. Whether or not you lose your home, the delay in police response, even if it's 2,000 police officers citywide, that's a lot of police officers not to be on our streets, not to be responding to calls for help. Our EMS, our EMTs, the delays in response, this is going to cost lives. So whatever the percentage is, whether it's 9%, 10%, or even 2%, that number is still too high. And it's putting everyone in danger. And the responsibility of an elected official, especially the mayor of New York, is to defend and protect all New York City residents. And right now, he's not protecting anyone.
What would you say to people in support of the mandates who, some people are like, oh, this is a public health thing, that's why we need mandates? What would your response to be to someone like that?
Well, the response is really multi-pronged. Yes, we understand that this pandemic was very, very real, and this virus was very, very real, and a lot of people died. We understand that. I've had family that contacted, and I know what people go through. I do understand. But to shut down an entire city, to shut down a city's economy, to take people's livelihoods away, while the southern border is wide open and they're allowing illegals to just walk into our country, unvaccinated, not mandating them to be vaccinated, and putting them on planes and dropping them off at locations at night all across the country, not too far from New York City, right here in Westchester. I mean, what is the story here? Is this really a global health crisis, or is it not? Because you're telling New Yorkers that they must get vaccinated or they cannot earn a living, or their children can't go to school, yet you're allowing thousands of people just to walk into our country and sending them all over the place without mandating them. So again, we don't know what the real numbers are. They'll always be skewed, but we don't trust the message, and we certainly don't trust the messengers right now.
Yeah, the environment feels very toxic. You never want to force someone to do something, and to see all these people, first responders, lose their livelihoods.
No,
that is a public health issue in itself. So I think we sometimes forget about that. Those are public health issues too, because not everyone's trained to respond to emergencies. And
No.
New York City,
you simply can't just replace firefighters or police officers or
right,
or EMTs. You just can't replace them, and the city's not going to be able to replace them quickly. And this mayor can say that he'll bring in the National Guard. That is not the answer, and it's not going to work, and people are going to lose their lives.
Yeah. Well, they said they're going to bring in the National Guard for healthcare workers who didn't want to. So the National Guard's getting pulled into a lot of places.
Yes, I hope we have a lot of them, because they're going to be doing everybody's job very soon.
Right. And we don't know, we might have another surge yet. So I feel like we'd want these people who are trained and qualified to work. That's my view on it.
Of course.
Let's talk a little bit about sanitation, because New York City, there's always trash outside. I mean, they have like a crucial role, the sanitation department, but I've been hearing anecdotally, people are complaining about like garbage is not being picked up. Is that, what are you hearing?
Well, I'm hearing that the Department of Sanitation is in the same situation that the police department is, the fire department, our teachers, everyone's shorthanded now because they're being mandated to take the vaccine. So they're not at work, they're not on the job, and of course, service is going to fall behind. It's just common sense for this mayor to expect there not to be any delays or breaks in service with so many people on leave without pay. I mean, he's out of his mind. There's going to be obvious signs that these agencies are shorthanded right now. And with sanitation, it's extremely obvious. You know, people don't always see the police. People don't always see the fire department. People don't always see teachers or EMS, but they always see garbage. And whether it's in front of their house or it's on a commercial strip, they'll see garbage if it starts to pile up. And if we continue to leave our sanitation workers on unpaid leave and shorthanded, it's going to continue to pile up. And then you have another public health issue on your hands.
I'm sure you've talked to first responders, cops, and firefighters. What are you hearing when people say they don't want to get this vaccine? Is it that they're against the mandate, or they're not ready to get this vaccine yet? Or do they want, I've also heard they just want more time to make their decision. What is it?
It's a combination, really. Again, they're not anti-vaccine. They're not anti-vaxxers, as they've been called. They have concern over the vaccine. They'd like more time. They'd like to see more of a trial period to see what the long-term effects are. And they don't like being told what to put into their bodies by politicians. And that's really the crux of it. If you put it all together, those are really what's concerning everyone. The fact that we don't have a long-term trial, we don't know what the effects are yet. We're being ordered to do this or else we can't earn a living. And now we're being told that our children are going to have to be vaccinated or they can't go to school. And a vaccine by Pfizer was just approved between 5 and 12-year-olds. I mean, how in good conscience, again, this is just my personal belief, do you vaccinate your 5-year-old at this point in time? Maybe 2 years from now, we'll realize that this is safe and everybody will start to come around. But right now, that's a very difficult decision for a parent to make.
Right. And I respect that. Everybody it's a personal decision, and I think
Yes.
it's important to meet people where they are and hear their concerns. Has the mayor been doing that? Like, I know there was people outside his mansion not too long ago rallying, but has he been listening to people's concerns? And
No,
this is just no.
no, this is not a mayor who has ever listened to anyone's concerns, especially in the last year and a half. He's about his agenda. He will push his agenda. And with only a month and a half left in his term, he's going to do whatever he wants. He has not met anyone halfway. He did not sit down with the unions, with the police or fire unions before he rolled out these mandates to discuss possibilities. He put on the table originally a testing option where city workers could get tested once a week in lieu of the vaccination. And then he pulled it off the table, again, without even discussing it with the unions or with the membership. And that's just bad leadership. And that's why we are where we are right now.
What are your thoughts on this citywide vaccine passport policy?
My personal opinion is I'm against it. I stand against all the COVID mandates. I stand against the vaccination mandates, the mask mandates, and having to walk around with a COVID passport and COVID card just to walk into a restaurant or a gym or a movie theater. For the mayor to come out and say, unless you get vaccinated, you can't enjoy freedom. Well, that's not what this country was built upon. And for him to say that just goes to show you what his mindset is. So I'm against that. I'm against all the mandates. I am certainly for, again, freedom of choice. And I'm all for public safety. There are ways we can do this safely. It's been proven. The numbers originally proved it before they threw all the numbers out and didn't pay attention to them anymore. But we can keep people safe. We have kept people safe without forcing them to get a vaccine or wear a mask. It's been proven. It's being proved right now every day in Florida. Over the past 3 weeks, Florida has the lowest infection rate in the entire country. And that Florida's been wide open for about a year already, wide open. The governor down there, Governor DeSantis, does not believe in mandates. Right. He's running his state completely different from what New York is doing.
Yeah,
and he's succeeding. It's working.
It is. It's interesting to compare they're so different, the responses between Florida and New York. And I don't know if everyone was saying New York was losing a lot of people to Florida. I don't know. Is that your understanding? Or
I know a lot of people who have either gone to Florida or are talking about going to Florida.
Anecdotal, yeah.
Anecdotally, yeah, of course.
Me too.
Will we see a bigger move if these city workers do lose their jobs? Absolutely, I guarantee it. We saw the Governor DeSantis, offer police officers $5,000 just to relocate down to Florida. He said he would take out-of-state police officers, including New York City police officers, down in Florida with a $5,000 bonus. Right now, if you have to make that decision to stay in New York City and be mandated to take a vaccine, or go down to Florida and be a police officer in Florida, right now with a whole state wide open, that choice might not be as difficult as it sounds.
The other thing about the vaccine passport, and my understanding is that you only need one dose to get in. So, and it doesn't matter when you get that one dose. Is that correct?
Again, you have.
Okay, yeah, that's not really, what science is that, or what is there any, because you could still be carrying COVID, like
of course
you can still transmit. Okay.
No, it shows that this mayor is talking out of both sides of his mouth. He was at a public event recently and he told New Yorkers, you can get the shot, you can get the vaccine right outside the event and walk right in. Right. What vaccine works within 30 seconds? I mean, that doesn't even make sense. I mean, anybody with common sense would have to say, that's just simply not right. So again, there's that message, and that's why everybody's concerned.
Right, because it's not following the science. Like, if you want to follow the science, then do it the right way. Like, make sure everyone's fully vaccinated, which is 2 weeks after your second dose for Pfizer and Moderna, and 2 weeks after J&J, for everyone who wants to know that. How do you think the city is doing economically?
We are struggling. It's been a struggle for quite a while. We were coming out of the pandemic and we were starting to see signs of life. Broadway was starting to reopen again. Businesses were starting to get rolling, but the mandates now, everything's starting to revert. We're going back to where we were a year ago. People don't think they can earn a living here anymore. They're closing up their businesses. Again, as we talked about, city workers are looking elsewhere. So our economy is struggling. And when you tell businesses that they can only serve or have patrons that are fully vaccinated, well, you're cutting off maybe 20–30% of your business. You can't survive like that. There's no way. So our economy is heading in the wrong direction once again, after it looked like we were turning it around.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how tourism was coming along, but I've seen like a couple like Broadway openings and they had to shut down if someone tested positive.
Yes.
But then the outdoor dining thing was an issue too recently. But I guess it's going to be permanent, but still New York City gets so cold. So no one's going to be sitting outside.
Yes, in a few weeks, it's going to be difficult to sit outside and eat dinner.
Yeah, yeah. So if you were elected mayor, how would you have handled the pandemic earlier? How would you handle it going forward?
Well, I think at the beginning, there was so much unknown and so much misinformation that it was understandable that our elected officials made some errors, of course. No one knew what we were looking at. 2 weeks to flatten the curve seemed like it was sensible, of course, and we all went along with it. We all did what we were told, but it was obviously far beyond 2 weeks. I think once we start to get a grasp of what this really was and about how we can control it without destroying lives and without shutting down our city and shutting down our economy. Look, I worked for an organization that had 26 buildings. Each of them were 100 years old, archaic buildings. We were able to change the entire HVAC system, the ventilation system, the filtration system. We upped our sanitization 10 times per day opposed to what we were doing before this. We changed the entire structure. And these are 100-year-old buildings. We were able to do that. And we were able to keep people safe. We were able to keep the amount of cases where I work down to a minimum just by doing that. And of course, emphasizing social distancing, washing of the hands, mask wearing. That all worked. That all worked without people taking people's lives away, without shutting down the entire industry. If we can do that where I work with 100-year-old buildings, we can certainly do it in Manhattan. We could certainly do it in every borough. We could do it in office buildings. We could do it at every place of employment. We could put people back to work, still keep them safe, and still let them earn a living. It can be done. The numbers show it. There's proof. Again, Florida, there's proof that it can be done.
What is your prediction over the next few months in regards to vaccine mandates, and the first responders leaving? Do you think they're going to stand? Do you think it's going to get better before it gets worse? How do you think this is going to influence people when they vote?
I think it's going to have a tremendous influence on how people vote tomorrow. The future of our city, the future of these mandates depend on the outcome tomorrow. My stand since last year has been, as I said before, I'm against all COVID mandates, and I will remove all COVID mandates immediately as mayor and put people back to work. And I will rehire anyone that lost their job because of such. Any city worker will be rehired under my administration. The other two candidates, they have different views on it. That's up to them to spell that out. The bottom line is, if we get a mayor who's going to continue these mandates or even tighten them, which one of the other candidates said they would, and impose the mandates on our children and our schools, you're going to see a mass exodus out of New York City. You're going to see city workers take their families and leave. You're going to see parents pull their kids out of the public education system and either homeschool them, try to get them into private schools or charter schools, or just leave the city altogether. We're going to see a very, very different New York City in 5 to 6 months if these mandates continue.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've seen people like leave because of the mandates, and you feel, from a public health perspective, you feel kind of bad, and health communications is a passion of mine, and you just like, can't we just talk to people, have conversations, and find sort of like a common ground? But that doesn't seem to be happening. Just feels.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I think the problem is, it's not so much the message, it's the messenger. People have lost faith in their elected officials, whether it be the president, the governor, the mayor of New York City, whomever it is. They don't trust elected officials right now. And whether or not that's right or wrong, people just have a distrust of government. And this message is coming from the government. If the government did a better job of putting that message out and really, like you said, communicating with people instead of forcing this on them, we might not have this issue right now. We might have been able to work something out. We might have had more compliance. We may not have. but at least we would have had an open, healthy conversation about it instead of basically a tyrannical mayor telling you either you do what I tell you or you lose your living. So again, communication so important.
Yeah, no, it really is. And hearing where people are coming from and not just forcing your beliefs on them. We need to do a better job of that. And you really hit a key point that I think affects many different areas beyond just the pandemic control, but we've lost trust in elected officials and our government officials. And some people think even, public officials have been captured by big money interest. How do you think as a political person that we can rebuild that trust?
It's going to be very hard. People are very disenchanted. People are disillusioned with politics. We see that. We see the result of that with the voter turnout. Voter turnout has been abysmal here in New York City, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. But the last mayoral election, only 20% of registered voters actually showed up to vote. And that's how we got a second term of Bill de Blasio, and that's why we are where we are. The only way that changes if you get candidates who are willing to step up, good people who are willing to step up and push their message. It's not an easy thing to do. Politics keeps a lot of good people away because they don't want to get involved in the nastiness, and there's a lot of that. But we have to show that good people that don't have millions of dollars in the bank are able to step up, run for office, and succeed. And even if they don't win that office, if they're able to get their message out, that is so important. That's really what my campaign's been about. If we're able to get a message out, and we've done that, we've succeeded in that. No matter what happens tomorrow, we've gotten our message out with a tiny fraction of the billions of dollars that other campaigns have spent and billions of dollars that taxpayers have spent on these campaigns. We've still been able to get out a strong message. So I'm hoping, again, that no matter what happens tomorrow, that our campaign has shown people that yes, good people, people who just care about the city, who care about their families, can step up, run for office, and make a difference. That's how we change it.
Well, thank you so much, Bill. I want to thank you for your time. I want to wish you a successful campaign tomorrow. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been great. Thank you.
Absolutely. So and to our viewers, thanks for joining in. Bill Pepitone, you can check him out. Your website is?
My website's Pepitone for NYC.com.
Okay, that's where you can go if you want to learn more about Bill. And thank you guys for joining in, and hope to see you next time. Thanks, Bill, and have a good rest of your night.
You as
well.
Good luck. Thank you. Stay safe.
Sure thing. Okay, bye-bye.